I'm glad you slept well, Harold, you dick.
It's the 70s. Everyone was slapping the missus about.
This podcast contains graphic descriptions that some listeners may find disturbing. Listener discretion is advised. Now, with that being said, welcome to the Mortal Musings podcast.
Right, let's do this. Do you know there's something in our kitchen, not just our kitchen, loads of people's kitchens.
Mm-hmm.
I fucking despise them. Absolutely despise them.
Okay.
You use it all the time. I never use it. And I'm hoping there's some listeners who are going to agree with me. Now, me and you have had this discussion before, and you tried blaming me, saying it's because I don't know how to use it properly.
Doesn't sound like something I would say, but anyway.
Cheese slicer.
Ah.
So you get your block of cheese.
I wouldn't be without one.
You get your block of cheese, and you get your cheese slicer, and you run it down, and as you get to the bottom, rips the corner off. A big fucking
you don't
chunk.
know what you're doing with a cheese slicer if that's happening to you. You're not sophisticated enough to use a cheese slicer.
There's only one way you can use.
No, you're doing it wrong.
Please explain what I'm doing wrong. Every time a block, like Norman loves it because Norman gets the fucking.
You better not be giving him cheese.
He get if something comes off, I give it him.
That lad has a sensitive stomach. You be careful.
I'm only giving him a bit.
You've just said a massive block comes off, did you not? No. So with cheese slicers, I have this thing about them. I get very annoyed. I feel like there's two types of people: people who were brought up in a house with a cheese slicer, myself, and people who weren't. You refuse to learn how to use one. One of my cousins, I remember every time she's over at her house having lunch or something, every single time she'd use it, she'd hack the fucking block of cheese to bits. To bits.
See, I was brought up to use a knife. Just cut it with a knife.
But if you have a cheese slicer, you get a perfect slice of cheese every time.
No. What I cut with a knife is perfect every time. I've got a 60% chance I'm going to get a decent slice from a cheese slicer.
Because you don't know how to use it.
No, but I do know how to use it.
But apparently you don't.
I just don't get on with it. It's whoever invented it wants looking at.
Wants looking at.
Yeah.
Do you know what your problem is? So you're holding the block of cheese, yeah?
Yeah.
And you're going to slice it.
Yeah.
But you're not holding your thumb against it. So it doesn't break. You don't understand how to use a cheese slicer.
Cheese slicer has a blade on it.
Yeah. But how fast are you doing it? You're fucking going
fast enough.
A nice pace. You know what I mean? You're getting the job done, but you're also being careful enough not to slice your finger.
Why is there more rules with a cheese slicer than there is a fucking knife?
It's just because you're not educated on cheese slicing etiquette, apparently. I have used a cheese slicer all my life. I love them. I think they're a brilliant fucking tool. Everyone should have one in their kitchen. And it irks me that you're saying this. I have an issue with this. Another thing to do with you and cheese is I will always buy mature cheddar. You won't even eat it.
Mild.
Yeah, like that.
I like me mild.
What's the point of it? There's no flavour. It's like rubber.
No, it isn't. No,
it's like fucking rubber, I tell you, right? That's the only reason I would willingly buy mild cheddar is for people like you and your cheese slicers, because you can't handle mature cheddar. Mature cheddar, I get it, it's more crumbly, it can be a little bit more difficult to slice, fair enough. But if you're slicing a lump of bastard rubber, where are you running into problems?
Well, yeah, it is more with the cheese you'd buy. I have the problem. But you're there saying you need to put your thumb there.
Mm-hmm.
If I run the blade down the fucking block of cheese and hit my thumb, I'm going to cut myself, you fucking idiot. Why am I going to put my thumb there?
Because you're going up, you curve upwards with it. So you're not going to hit your finger. Now, admittedly, yes, you probably would. Just as the type of person you are, you will be the person to run into problems with a blade in your hand. But I'm just saying, since I was a little kid, I've used a cheese slicer. I've never once cut myself.
Oh.
Not once.
But you've had pieces break off?
Yeah, if it's a mature block because it's crumbly.
So use a knife?
No, because a cheese slicer, you get like a perfect slice. I just don't understand this, unwillingness to come to terms with newer technology and devices and what was you utensils? Not really technology.
No.
Utensils. It's not even a new.
Oh, here we go.
1 sec.
I'm gonna say 60s.
I'd say 1800s.
Cheese slicer.
I'd say 1800s. Hang on now, let me look it up. So this is just a quick AI overview, so you can't really trust it. But it's saying 27th of February 1925.
Split the difference then.
And it's Norwegian as well.
So it's them to blame.
It's them to appreciate and praise.
Oh, something else to tell our listeners. So if you're annoyed every time you Google something and it comes up with that AI overview. So if you was to say, what day does Mortal Musings podcast upload? And you're looking for the answer, you might get the AI overview. But if you put, what fucking day does the Mortal Musings podcast upload? It's like the old style, like you just get links.
You just get results.
Yeah.
And that is the Mortal Musings way to speak.
Yeah.
What bollocking day do they release an episode?
Yeah, when I saw that, I thought, nah, that's not true. And then I tried it.
I have as well.
I put, how many paracetamol can I take in a day? And it came up with AI overview. And then I put, what fucking day? How many fucking paracetamol can I take in a day? And it came up with proper pharmacy links.
Came up with a helpline.
Yeah.
It actually did.
According to statistics, the average person walks past 36 murderers in their lifetime.
Oh my God, she was murdered. It was a murder?
Unlike in Hollywood movies, they're not easy to spot.
Where is she, buddy? Where is she?
The devil made me turn her to ashes.
They seamlessly blend into our everyday lives, assuming roles as friendly neighbours, helpful colleagues, or even the person lying beside you each night.
I wanted to be out of jail. I couldn't wait till I got out. I was in there with someone who was clearly psychopathic.
Using investigative research and primary audio, Morbidology is an award-winning true crime podcast that shines a light on the darkest corners of humanity.
Through our investigation, we have attained evidence which we are not releasing at this time, which leads us to believe Jolene is not alive.
Tune into Morbidology each week across all podcast platforms.
So fuck the cheese slicer and fuck the AI overview. What you got for us today?
Today we are going to be talking about the murder of Louisa Dunne.
Don't know that one.
Do you ever?
Yeah. None some, I think.
You've been known. Louisa, also known as Louise, was born in 1892. Her granddaughter said, quote, "There weren't that many choices for women. I get the feeling she was quite feisty. She probably had quite a lot of strong feelings and beliefs herself." Louisa had been married twice. Her first husband was a well-known local Labour politician named Ted Parker.
Well known, but probably not well liked.
With Ted, Louisa shared 2 children, Edna and Iris.
And I wasn't saying that because I'm like pro or against Labour. It's because back in the day they used to, well, they still do it now. They go knocking on doors and shit. Can I get your vote?
That's politicians in general.
Yeah, I'm not saying he wasn't well liked because he's Labour.
You're saying you dislike all politicians.
Yeah.
Or any of the ones that bother you.
Yeah.
Fair point. Well, the fact that Ted was a politician most likely made him a good match for Louisa, who from the sounds of it loved a good debate. Quote, "She used to join in with the political chat that went on in the house. My grandmother supported my grandfather. She must have been in the position of a lot of women, where she ran the house and looked after the children, while he went on with his career."
I bet you see her a bit annoying.
Who?
Louisa.
Why are you saying that?
Because it's like, I'm probably reading into it too much, but it's a bit like, get back in your box, like, stay in your lane. Like, she loves a good debate about politics and stuff. You're the same, and it annoys the fuck out of me.
Yeah, I was about to say, I'm an outrageously opinionated person.
Yeah.
I love a good debate.
Yeah. It's like that, right?
That was evident in our more recent episodes.
Yeah. So, like, say me and Megan, we're watching something. It doesn't have to be important. It could be a movie. It could be a documentary, a sitcom. Like, all I'm looking for is just a quick answer, done. While we're watching it, I might say something like, "He makes this show. His character makes this show. This show would be fucked if they didn't have him." But say if Megan likes someone else in that show, she will have to tell me for 10 minutes why I'm wrong and why someone else makes this show.
Okay, stop exaggerating. That is not true at all.
Bollocks.
That's an outrageous lie. It's not true. I do love a good debate, and I have to be honest with you, it actually pisses me off that you're not able to debate. Neil is one of those people that if you're like, right, let's debate either side of this argument, Neil will just insult you personally and not actually debate the point. He just takes everything personally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I hate you for not being able to debate.
Okay. I didn't say I hate you.
I strongly dislike you and your lack of ability.
I didn't say that. It's
argue a
just
point.
I wish you'd shut up if we're watching something. Like, don't go on for 10, 15 minutes.
You do this a lot with your deflective behaviour. That's more you than me. When you're just shiting on about something. You're not making a point, you're just shiting on. And I think the listeners can see where I'm coming from with that. They won't think I'm lying there. But, I mean, that's your opinion. I think Louisa sounds like a delight. I like someone with a...
Well, you two would clash.
We might, but we'd have a bloody good debate about whatever it is. Now, as far as you saying that you think she may be a bit too opinionated for your liking, in photos of Louisa, she's quite often seen peering from behind someone. She's the wife of the politician. She quite often took the back seat. Quote, "I got the idea that maybe it was a difficult life being in the second row to a man who was very clever and very powerful and very idealistic. Ted's career was moving in the right direction, and he was a potential candidate for mayor of the city. Unfortunately, after Ted suffered a stroke, he was confined to the hospital until his death in 1945.
What city?
Bristol.
Bristol?
They do have a fun accent there.
You alright, me lover?
Have you ever been to Bristol?
No, I haven't.
I've been a few times. It's a nice city. I think you'd like it.
Why? It's
a nice city.
What's there?
And I think you'd like it.
What's there other than... Is it Broadmoor or fucking Parkhurst or something? Oh no, that's like Devon. Never mind. Go.
So Ted suffered a stroke, was confined to a hospital and died in 1945.
Yeah.
Louisa was understandably distraught. From what I gather, they seem to have truly loved and enjoyed each other's company. After the death of her husband, Louisa was said to have used alcohol to cope with the anguish she was experiencing. And Louisa's drinking did cause a rift between her and her daughters. And this left her somewhat isolated from her family.
See, drinking, like, it's not as sophisticated as it once was.
Well, that was in the 40s. Was the 40s sophisticated for you enough?
But it weren't as sophisticated as the 20s.
Louisa would later go on to remarry. Her second husband was John Dunne, a night watchman. He passed away in the early 60s. Now widowed for a second time, Louisa's social life was mainly confined to her neighbourhood of Easton Bristol.
So is that what this case is? She's like a black widow. She's doing like inheritance.
No, could have been, but no.
Oh.
Her neighbours remembered her as a kind woman who wouldn't hurt a fly and spent much of her time just watching the world go by. On the night of the 27th of June, 1967, neighbours of Louisa reported hearing screams and moans that night, but didn't think much else of the situation. It wasn't until the following morning when neighbours noticed that Louisa hadn't yet appeared. This was unusual for Louisa. As we had just mentioned, she would often stand out on her doorstep, I can only assume with her morning cup of tea, and take in the day. Worried about her welfare, Louisa's neighbours Violet Allen and Hilda Stedman approached her home. They discovered that one of her windows had been left open. They peered through the window to see that Louisa was laid on the floor in her front room.
Oh, so she's the victim?
Yes.
Okay. Feel a bit bad now.
Was the title of the episode not a giveaway?
I haven't seen the title of the episode.
I said it at the start of the case. The murder of Louisa Dunne.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
Violet climbed through the window and reached down to help Louisa, but quickly realised that she was already dead. She would later tell the police that she was, quote, cold as ice at the time of discovery. Louisa was laid on her back on top of a pile of clothes. She was bruised, bleeding from her ear, and there was vomit in her mouth.
It ran head then. Not usually bleeding from ear.
No. Her underwear had been pulled down towards her ankles, and nylon stockings were laid across her neck. Her cause of death was determined to be strangulation and asphyxiation. There was extensive abrasions to her face, which leads us to believe that the attacker had placed his hand over her mouth. A swab was taken which tested positive for semen, so they can determine that there was a sexual assault, but at the time, DNA testing was not possible. At the time of her death, Louisa was 75 years old. She was 5'3" tall and weighed just 7 stone.
Fucking hell. Like, what kind of person do you have to be to do that?
This is the thing. You know, this is a petite, more frail, older woman in her own home.
Yeah.
You know, it's
like
the
that
worst of the worst to do this.
So this is similar to that Marie Rose Belcastro, what we did.
Yeah, I mean, it was a elderly woman living on her own.
Yeah.
It's the worst of the worst who's going to commit a crime like this. Following the death of Louisa, her daughter Edna suffered a breakdown. It was said that anxiety clouded the rest of her life, and that she never fully recovered from the devastation. Knowing that she never got the chance to resolve any issues with her mother, but also the fact that her mother's killer was still out there, it was too great of a pain for her to bear. Police were able to lift a palm print from the window in Louisa's upstairs bedroom. During the initial investigation, 19,000 prints were obtained from men and boys in the area.
Why
But no matches turned up.
Why just men and boys?
I mean, statistically. And also, there was semen found.
That makes sense.
Okay.
I'll stand down.
1,300 statements were taken, and there was more than 8,000 house-to-house calls. But unfortunately, the case would eventually go cold. Now, jumping forward nearly 6 decades later, to 2023, Joe Smith, a crime review officer, was tasked with taking another look into this case. She retrieves 17 boxes worth of paperwork and evidence from the archives. She realises that these items had never been subjected to any modern forensic examination. In May of 2024, the skirt that Louisa had worn the night she was murdered, as well as her hair samples, were sent for analysis. There was semen present on her skirt, and they were able to retrieve a full DNA profile. And once entered into the national database, they received a match. It was also said that this match was 1 billion times more likely to be this specific man than any other.
If they had the evidence, yeah, and they have the DNA database, why does it take them until 23? Like, when do they decide, right, we'll reopen that now?
I'm not entirely sure what the process is, if it's, going by the year. You know, we're going to work through each year in the 60s for the next X amount of years, or, unless something triggers the investigation. But it would have had to have been after 95 for the DNA.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? They didn't have the technology until then. Now, the DNA that they were able to obtain from the samples was a match to a man named Ryland Headley.
Ryland?
Ryland.
Fucking add that name to the list.
The only person I know of called Ryland is that fella who was on the X Factor.
I don't know who that is.
You do?
Ryland?
Used to watch X Factor. There was a fella called Ryland on X Factor.
absolutely was not.
There absolutely was.
You can test me on fucking X Factor.
He's a TV presenter now. He does loads of stuff.
Ryland.
Yeah. I thought it was Ryland.
No. Ryland.
Oh, so outrageously different, isn't it?
That's why I was punching the D. I was like, Ryland.
You did what?
Yeah. Okay.
That was basically you just being like a condescending prick. You wouldn't just say, oh, do you mean Ryland? You had to be like, Ryland? Who's Ryland? But we're not talking about Ryland from the X Factor. We are talking about Ryland Headley. So, who was Ryland Headley? Well...
bloke from Bristol, I'm guessing.
By the time they'd figured out who Louisa's attacker was, Ryland was now in his 90s. He was described as a friendly man and a great-grandfather who doted on his family. Now, can I just say, this shit pisses me off. Now, Neil and I have talked about this before. Why the fuck do people always think that because someone is old, that suddenly they're all sweet and cute?
Yeah.
If they were a sexual predator at 30, they're probably still a dirty bastard at 90, whether they're actively trying to harm people or not.
I actually watched a documentary, and I think that was on a cold case. And when they got the bloke, he was an old man. I think he was like a hitman for the fucking mob or something. And the arresting officer, when they interviewed him after, they said, when I walked up to him, he was in like an apartment complex and he was putting rubbish in the bin. He'd gone down to like the bin storeroom.
Whitey Bulger.
Yeah. And he says, I walked up to him and he was this sweet old man the way he was talking. And when he knew that there was no way out of it, I knew who he was. And I told him to get on his knees with his hands behind his head. He said his face changed and he went, I'm not getting on my fucking knees. Like it completely fucking changed. That sweet old man had just disappeared.
Yeah. Also, how fucking rude and condescending to have lived 80 plus years and be described as cute. Yeah. I wouldn't be having it. Like, just ignorant fucks. You know what I mean? Anyway, just had to get that off my chest. Anyway, at the time of the murder, Ryland was 34 years old, a railway worker, and lived about 1.5 miles away from Louisa. Now, remember they took prints from the window?
Yeah.
Well, Ryland lived just outside of the housing area that had been subject to investigation.
Oh.
Yeah, so he dodged that bullet at the time. But Ryland had been arrested in 2012 on suspicion of a separate offence. He was not charged, but he did give a DNA sample, allowing police to link him to this murder. Not long after the murder of Louisa, Ryland and his family moved out of Bristol. It's thought that he may have lived in London for a while before settling in Ipswich. In October of 1977, Ryland admitted to the sexual assault of 2 women in Ipswich, a 79-year-old and an 84-year-old woman, both in their own homes.
So is his a thing where he don't want, he wants them where they can't defend themselves, or has he got a thing for old age pensioners?
Well, he does give a reason for why he commits sexual assaults, which I'm going to get into in a minute.
Okay.
I would just assume he is deliberately targeting more vulnerable people. Also, the home thing, I think it's also the robbery side of it. Ryland snuck into their homes and threatened to kill them before sexually assaulting them. The 84-year-old woman reported that when she attempted to scream, Ryland told her, quote, "If you do that, that will be worse for you." The 79-year-old woman reported that he had told her that he had a gun and said, quote, "If you do what I tell you, you will be all right. If not, I will kill you. Do not scream or make a noise, or I will kill you."
Do you know, you're saying, going for more vulnerable people.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not always the case. Like, I remember it wasn't that long ago. This lad, he was going around twacking, and he broke into this elderly couple's house.
Twacking is robbing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just for people who aren't from Sheffield.
Pinching, nicking. Yeah.
Is that specifically Sheffield, or would you say it's just more northern in general?
I don't know.
Or is it nationwide? I don't know. I'd never heard of it before.
But he broke into this elderly couple's house. But the husband, the old man, was like an ex-fucking... I don't know if he were a British boxing champion or something. Like, he was in his 90s. He beat the snot out of this fucking guy. Broke his nose, broke his jaw. That had to be wired shut. Fucked his eyes up. Probably had multiple concussions. It's not all vulnerable.
Wrong house, I think.
Yeah. Like, even an old biddy is lethal with a rolling pin. To club him round the head. I don't know what you were fucking thinking.
No, it's just the way you said, like...
Oh.
You didn't say, like, haha, you weren't like, that's their weapon of choice. It's not funny.
Yeah, it's rolling pin or wooden spoon. They lived in a tougher time.
No, I get what you're saying. Of course, there are, some people who are well capable, but generally speaking, children and elderly tend to be more vulnerable.
Yeah. I'm just saying something just to say something.
Don't you always? In May of 1978, Ryland was convicted of his crimes and received a life sentence. That was the case until an appeal stated that the only reason he had become a rapist was out of frustration.
What?
Yeah, apparently Ryland was sexually frustrated due to him being married to a, quote, ambitious and demanding woman.
Wait, so he weren't getting on at home? So it's his wife's fault. Why aren't they sending the wife?
This is exactly
to
it.
Prison.
Do you want me to just really make this worse? His sentence was reduced and he only served about 2 years. The fact that he would even try and use that as a defense is horrific.
And it worked.
But that it worked. Yeah.
That's insane.
He had also committed 10 burglaries between 1973 and 1978. He was caught after his fingerprints were matched to those found at the scene. Now, the burglaries had been taken into consideration during his sentencing for the sexual assaults of these two women. So, I really don't know what you have to do to serve the real fucking time during the 70s.
Yeah.
Now, jumping forward to 2024, they now have his DNA, but they also need to be able to place Ryland as being in Bristol at the time of the murder, which they were able to do through payrolls and the electoral register. And on Tuesday, the 19th of November 2024, Ryland was arrested. During questioning, Ryland refused to speak on anything and would simply reply with no comment, but he did deny any involvement in the murder of Louisa. The trial began on the 16th of June 2025.
That's this year.
Yeah, it was a couple of weeks ago. This is a very recent case.
Okay. I'm not used to you doing like ones from this generation.
I don't generally do very, very up-to-date cases because I feel like I'd like to wait a little bit in case there's anything else that comes out or, that I can add to the story. Ryland pleaded not guilty to rape and murder. This trial was a particularly interesting one. You were able to place him in the location of the murder. You have his DNA. You now have his palm print. And he also had a history of similar sexually motivated crimes. But pretty much all of the witnesses were either dead or presumed dead at this stage. So a lot of the testimonies were actually from previous statements given. The first testimony read was from Alice Clark. Alice had described Louisa as her best friend. She said that she had last seen Louisa on the evening of the 27th of June 1967, the night she was murdered. Louisa had called over to her home and left around 7:30 p.m. Alice said that she seemed in good spirits that evening. Louisa's neighbour, Violet Fortune, she said that she had gone to bed at 11:45 p.m. that night. Quote, "I was awakened suddenly by what sounded like a scream. It was not a long, piercing scream, but a crying out. It sounded muffled, and I thought it came from the street outside. Violet then got out of her bed and looked out onto the street from her window, but saw nothing and got back into bed." Quote, I'd been in bed for about 2 minutes when again I heard someone cry out. I could not distinguish it was the voice of a woman. The cry lasted for 2 or 3 seconds, and I was aware at the same time of a voice. I cannot say if it was a man or a woman.
See, that won't work with me and you. Like, say if we're laid in bed watching, I don't know, YouTube videos or something, and there's noises outside, we don't move, we just go, what's that? And just look towards the window with the curtains closed.
Yeah.
Like, what's that?
You
And then just go back to YouTube.
You kind of like wait for a second. If you hear something else, your interest is peaked. But the immediate thing, you're like, people fucking about.
Yeah.
So we're the shitty neighbours.
Like,
apparently.
we've actually got into arguments before where I've heard something and I'm like, that's a girl screaming. And then Megan's like, no, it's a fucking fox. She'll say it's a cat or an animal. And I'm adamant. I'm like, no, that's a girl screaming.
Yeah. Or the amount of times you're like, that's a girl screaming. I'm like, it's kids fucking around. You're like, no, it's a girl screaming. And then a second later, you hear them laughing and joking. And it's like, it's teenagers fucking about and messing.
It's either that or, you know, if me and Megan get into an argument about it, I'll say, well, I tell you what, I won't go out and check it out. But if we go out there in the morning and there's police tape across the fucking road, it's on you.
You're going to throw me under the bus, yeah. Harold Hodson, another neighbour, said, quote, I heard a loud scream. It was a frightening scream. It was an adult woman. It sounded as if someone was being attacked. After the scream, there was a sound of moans, as if the sound was being muffled.
Hand over the mouth.
Exactly. Harold said that he assumed the sound was of a man beating his wife. The sound stopped, and Harold went back to sleep. Well, I'm glad you slept well, Harold, you dick.
The 70s. Everyone was slapping the missus about.
This is what I mean. Harold gave such a good account. It was like, it was a loud scream, frightening scream, adult woman, someone being attacked. He was very kind of to the point.
No, it wasn't someone being attacked. It sounded like a husband beating his wife.
No, but what I'm saying, in his actual statement, he said it was like literally boom, 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 points down. And he was right, you know, it was a scream, it was an adult woman, it was someone being attacked.
Yeah.
You know, there was obviously the scream and then the moans, which were being muffled. So his account is pretty good, you know?
Yeah.
But then he's also like, well, you know, 67 people just beating their wives.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I hate to say it, but it wouldn't have been.
He was probably saying,
norm.
Obviously, the wife had overcooked his eggs.
Norman Taylor, the GP who was called to the scene, also spoke at the trial via video link. The defence asked whether he or the police had worn gloves during the investigation, to which Norman confirmed that they had not. So this was kind of Ryland's whole defence, it seems, that the lack of forensic procedures in 1967 casted doubt on Ryland's guilt.
Well, not really. Unless he was one of the investigating officers, then that don't mean shit. Why was your prints and your semen in that fucking house?
Exactly. It's not the strongest defence. You have a mountain of evidence, like physical evidence against him. He also has a history of sexual violence against women.
Yeah.
Breaking into the homes, robberies. But okay, you know, I suppose.
But he had a good reason. His wife wasn't giving him any.
I can't even with that.
Because she was too ambitious.
Yeah.
Is that what he said?
Ambitious and demanding. You know, these career women.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. It was said that Ryland's crimes had an intergenerational impact, and that this was a powerful aggravating factor. On the 30th of June 2025, Ryland was found guilty. The jury took just shy of 10 hours to return a verdict, with a 10-2 majority guilty of murder.
10-2?
Yes.
So it took 10 hours,
Mm-hmm.
and 2 people still thought he was innocent.
Mm-hmm.
His semen was on her skirt.
Yes, but he's also a 92-year-old man, and quite often...
He wasn't 92 at the time.
It doesn't matter. People see a 92-year-old man. This is what I'm saying about the cute and sweet and whatever. Suddenly, their opinion and their judgments get clouded because they see this kind of frail, older person and think, oh, well, I mean, you know, couldn't have done it. And it's like you just said, he wasn't at the time. He was a 34-year-old man.
Yeah.
He was well capable of this. And like I said, never even mind that. Even if he was old, he's got the fucking history of it. And if his DNA is there.
I tell you what, though. I always try to see the silver lining. At least, even if he only got sentenced to 10 years, it's still a life sentence. Well, a good chance of it being a life sentence. Whatever he gets. He ain't got much longer left, has he?
So clearly you're not happy with the 10-2 majority. But it was a unanimous decision that he was guilty of rape. On the 1st of July 2025, Ryland was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 20 years to be served. During sentencing, the judge described Ryland as a cruel, depraved, pitiless man who had violated not only Louisa's home, but her body and her life. He went on to say that Louisa must have suffered considerable pain and fear, and that Ryland showed a complete disregard for her life and her dignity. He then told Ryland, quote, "You will never be released. You will die in prison." Ryland is thought to be the oldest person convicted of murder in the UK, and the 58-year span of time between the crime and conviction is quite possibly the largest in recent English history.
Okay, now.
I think a quote that truly sums up this case is from one of the senior investigating officers, Dave Marchant. Quote, "Louisa was attacked in her own home, where she should have been safe. Because of the women who had previously spoke out after being attacked by Ryland, we now have an idea of what Louisa must have gone through. Quote, those ladies have almost given Louisa the voice that she didn't have. Louisa's granddaughter, Mary Dayton, said that she was completely stunned when they contacted her to say that they had a suspect. Quote, I was just 20 years old when my grandmother died, and now I'm almost the same age as she was when she was killed.
That's mad, innit?
Crazy.
Imagine that.
Well, the other thing is, Mary never really got a chance to get to know her grandmother due to the falling out in the family. She said that she had only met her once when she was a teenager. Quote, I remember my grandmother being very keen to be friendly with me, and she held my hand very, very tightly. Now, people's attitudes towards the case have not always been the best. That's, I suppose, generally speaking with cold cases.
Okay.
Mary has said that she's encountered people who have actually said to her, why are the police wasting their time and their money on this? But as Mary has said, this is one of the worst crimes you can commit.
Yeah.
She went on to say, quote, we have laws, we have punishments, and if they aren't followed through and pursued as best we can, then there's absolutely no point in having laws. We might just as well all be anarchists.
Who was saying this to her? Fucking someone called Derek who sups fucking
Leslie
pints of Carlin and eats belly busters all day with his fucking gut hanging out.
You paint quite the picture. I think you're probably right on the money. Although she never formed a close bond with her grandmother, Mary said, I do feel connected to her, and I've got no idea why except DNA. The thing that caught him, it's caught me. I do feel deeply linked to her. And that is the murder of Louisa Dunne. Ryland Headley will celebrate his 93rd birthday this September in prison.
I don't think he will.
Happy birthday, Shy Talk.
I don't think he'll be celebrating.
I don't know, 93 is a big one.
That's mad.
It's
for the granddaughter, like.
It's wild. It's historic. In both sense, it's a historic case, but I mean, it's a moment in history. It's, you know, the oldest person, as far as we're aware, convicted of murder. It is also the longest a cold case has gone and now been solved.
Yeah.
Or to now be solved, should I say. I don't, generally speaking, do cases as they've just gone through the courts or whatever. Like, I came across this case while the trial was going on, and as I was writing it up, I had to wait for the sentencing to complete the case before recording it. I never really do that, but it was just kind of one of those ones that kind of got me, and I thought, okay, we gotta we got to talk about it. And yeah, here we are.
Yeah, like, it does go to show how fucking important cold cases are. You know, we've had negative comments about covering cold cases. And it's like, if anything, the more important than telling... Like, I'm not saying ones what have been solved aren't important to be told. Of course they are. But
I know what you're basically saying. Like, these are the ones that currently need attention given to them.
yeah. Yeah.
That actively need attention given to them, should I say.
Yeah. No, it's a mad one. Fucking... At least they got him. But that is the most outrageous thing I have ever fucking heard you tell me on this podcast.
Yeah, he became a rapist out of frustration. What?
Yeah.
Excuse me?
That is... And he got a lesser sentence.
Yep.
It's like, that poor guy.
I mean...
She's not giving him any.
Sexual assault just... I mean, it's still not taken as serious as it should be a lot of the time, but especially back in the 70s.
It
basically didn't... They didn't consider it that bad of a crime, really.
You know, I've heard, you know, a man has needs, but that's taking the fucking piss for them in a court to lessen his sentence because he's not getting any at home.
A man has needs, like, shut the fuck up. That's not any... We're all just filled with fucking hormones and shit. Like, shut the fuck up. I have a need to not be attacked.
Yes.
I have, you know, fears and adrenaline and anxiety coursing through my body that I do not need that in my life.
Yeah.
So sorry about your bit of frustration there, Ryland.
Fucking Ryland.
Not a fan of that name?
No, not really.
It's on your shit list now, isn't it? Yeah. So it's a case that is making history.
Yeah.
You know, when you think about it, Louisa was born in the 1800s. And in 2025, it's finally been solved. Do you know when you look at it from that...
That is actually mad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was born in 1892.
We'll be solving murders in Viking era next. Well, actually, weren't there something not long back where, like, I'm not speaking Viking era,
Mm-hmm.
but where did I read it? I read it somewhere. They found, like, a mummified body. They identified him as being a fucking vicar or something, and they pinpointed the time frame, and they was able to name him and everything.
Are you being serious right now, or...
Yeah.
Yeah, I told that on the podcast. It was an oddity. Not that long ago.
Okay. Okay. Speaking of oddities, Oddity.
Killer Seagulls.
I can believe it.
Now, if you've lived on the coast, or even if you've just ever visited the coast, you know what a bunch of bastards seagulls are.
Yeah.
Well, in Scotland, apparently, people are fearing for their lives over these little shits.
They have tattoos and lot in UK.
What?
The fucking seagulls in the UK, they have fucking, like, rolled up sleeves and
Can you hear how
tattoos.
tired I am? Can you hear how tired? Quote, scared, attacked and traumatized is how this was summed up for the people of this area.
Okay.
The seagulls have been described as a growing nuisance, and the population of seagulls in Scotland have become aggressive. In the space of a month, 7 children were attacked in Eyemouth, leaving one girl with, quote, gashes to her scalp and blood running down her face. The attacks have been described as a real concern, and officials are now criticising the Scottish Government and calling for a nationwide seagull summit.
Seagull Summit.
Seagull summit.
Okay.
The reason they need this seagull summit is because they're saying localised efforts will just not be enough to control this crisis. Quote, it is not just a seasonal nuisance, it is a serious growing health risk. It is a safety risk, particularly for children and elderly residents.
See, we had this when I was, like, I'd have been in junior school. Yeah, it was before I was in secondary school anyway. We had it with crows. Like, that ended up on, like, the news, the national news. But crows were just, for this short span of time, they were just attacking people for no reason. I got chased across the park by a crow.
Are you sure you just weren't, watching the birds? And
It kept swooping down and fucking pecking me on the head, chasing me across the park. They were breaking fucking windshields on cars.
No, fuck off. They weren't breaking windshields.
They fucking were. Look it up. Look it up. Crow attack Sheffield. I bet it comes up. Fucking did. You're talking...
But see, you're a bit of a storyteller is my problem.
You're talking between 95 and 2000.
I feel like, maybe there was a bit of an issue. There's one or two incidents and, you kind of bigged it up to be something it's not. Or maybe someone's windshield got cracked around the time of a crow, around the time a crow was flying low and suddenly it became the gossip heard around Sheffield. Do you know what I mean? Like I said, you are a bit of a fucking storyteller.
Well, the crow was pecking me on the head at full speed.
Nature Scott has also come into the firing line. They are the ones responsible for both controlling the birds, but also their conservation. So they're being accused of having a conflict of interests. They have responded with, quote, "In the longer term, we will need to find ways to live with the gulls and other wildlife. People are reported to be... Can't with this. People are reported to be worried about leaving their homes over fears of being dive bombed by the birds, while others in the area are struggling due to the lack of sleep caused by the noise. I can't with this. Fuck, it's so stupid. The issue has been described as escalating to a, quote, deadly level, and some are calling for action to be taken before someone is killed in one of these attacks.
See, you're laughing. Have you seen the girth on a seagull's beak?
I live on the coast. I'm used to seagulls.
Not pecking your fucking head, you know.
I know. What do you mean not pecking her? I know what seagulls are like. They are aggressive. Not like aggressive like I'm gonna die.
No, but you're gonna die, but you don't want pecking on the head.
Do you know what? I can laugh about it because I understand what they're like and I know the fucking size of them. I know how intimidating it can be if one of them swoops in at your fucking face. But I'm used to it. When you live on the coast, you know what they're like.
Yeah.
I can't help but feel some of this is quite dramatic. And others did feel the same way. It was thought that maybe the language being used to describe the threat level is somewhat misleading. One politician has cautioned against, quote, demonising seagulls, instead describing them as clever, adaptable animals. Quote, "It is not appropriate to demonise an animal simply for looking for food." And I think that's right on the money. That is what they're doing. When they're coming off as aggressive or threatening, it's because they're just like, there's food, gotta get it, going for it. It's not like they want to gouge your eyes out. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They haven't got this like ingrained hatred for humans.
And I think I'd rather go up against a seagull than a crow.
Yeah. Well, I mean, people have been urged to stop feeding the birds, which does seem to be causing the bulk of the issues.
Yes.
Neil, do you remember that time you tried to kill me via seagull? Do you remember that? What are you huffing at?
Because I didn't.
Well, you did, but anyway.
When we were sat on pier?
Yeah. We're on the pier and we'd gotten a sandwich and a coffee or something like that, wasn't it? Or was it a pastry?
Yeah, we got...
coffee and a pastry?
We got like croissants and a latte each.
Yeah. So Neil eats, at double the speed that I do. So he'd already finished his food. I'm only fucking halfway through. And he starts like throwing like the bits that are dropped in the bag, that all the crumbs and shit all around me.
Yeah, dump
so
bag.
they're all swarming around me. And then as soon as they see my fucking croissant, they're like, whoa, fucking hell. And I'm there like, I'm going to die. Because you might as well face it, you're going to die. Yeah. But no, what do you think about this? I personally think it's a little bit dramatic.
Like I said, like, if you actually look at them up close, the size of their beak.
Oh no, they're huge.
Like,
they're
fucking
fucking huge. And if they did go for you, yeah, they could do some damage. But generally speaking, seagulls aren't going for you. They might be going for your chips and hurt you in the process.
Give me a fucking chip.
But they're not trying to kill you. Do you get what I mean?
Was it a seagull I got in a row with in Dublin city centre?
Yeah, it flew into your face.
Yeah.
But that, even then, he didn't want to. As soon as he got close, he started backing up and trying to go. He was just swooping down. There was obviously something interesting on the floor.
Yeah. And I got into Philly shell.
Yeah, you got in his way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How dare I?
Yeah. Because you what did you say? You see, you're laughing, but that's what one of them actually said.
Yeah.
One of the people saying, people smirk when I bring this up.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. But again, I'm used to being around them, and I don't feel like my life is in danger. Do you know?
Yeah.
I don't feel a personal attack coming.
But you would.
What do you mean I would? I've just said I don't.
No, but you would. If they were attacking, you'd be scared shitless.
If our life turned into The Birds, the movie,
Yeah.
yes, I would be a tad concerned. But it's not. I'm yet to experience that.
So, do you want me to advise our Scottish...
You're talking about a fictional thing.
Yeah,
but you would.
Do you want me to advise our Scottish listeners? Get yourself an airsoft rifle. One that's fully automatic.
No.
Spray the bastards
No,
before...
you do not encourage people to go and fucking hurt the birds. They're not actually doing anything wrong.
They're pecking people's
No,
heads.
because it's these fuckers trying to feed them and then go, oh, it pecked me. It's well, you're holding the bastard chip in your hand. No wonder they land on your head trying to grab it out of you.
I thought it was like me with the crows. I thought it was just random attacks.
Well, they're now saying that they're a nuisance in general and they've become aggressive.
Right, okay.
It's now a bigger...
So you need to put them down a peg.
They're saying it's at a deadly level.
Deadly, right.
Deadly was the word used. Okay? That's where I'm taking a little bit of an issue. I don't believe it's at that level of concern.
So if we went to visit Scotland now, would we drive down a road where there's houses and it's just blokes?
Seagulls with baseball bats.
No, I was going to say a bloke in his front garden just swinging a bat about.
That's how some people in this community are acting.
Okay.
We need to fight back against them. Seagulls are annoying little shits, yeah? But intellectually, I know that they're just scavenging for food. You know?
Fuck me.
Thank you so much for listening. Find us on Patreon, TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. If you have a case suggestion, or maybe even your own story, email us at mortalmusingspodcast@gmail.com.